Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for coming. This is the next edition of the Rounds with the Council series hosted by the Alumni Council. My name is Alex Preissig. I'm the fourth year clinical sciences student representative on the Alumni Council. And tonight we have Dr. Luke, who will talk to everyone about protecting your wellness. Dr. Luke, thanks for being here, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. I'm so glad that you made time in your schedule to join us. Welcome to our Rounds with the Alumni Council. As Alex said, I'm Dr. Luke. It's a pleasure to meet you all virtually, and I hope that this evening's session will be interactive and super beneficial for you all. Feel free to use the chat feature to introduce yourself, name, your year in medical school, what city you're joining us from. I'd like this to be as interactive as possible. This evening, we will focus on the road ahead, and that's transitioning from being a medical student to physician while protecting your wellness. I'm Sarah Luke Vidal. I was born and raised in Dominica. Some of you may or may not know this island. I consider myself a recent graduate from Ross. I graduated in 2020. I started Ross in 2016, and I had quite an eventful pre-med and med journey, which I will share with you all. I'm now an OBGYN attending in North Carolina, and apart from my clinical work, I'm passionate about mentorship and student advocacy. So when Alex presented the opportunity to speak to the students, I hopped on. I'm super excited to share my knowledge with you all. So let's talk. By the end of this conversation, my goal is that you will understand the mindset shift from being a student to an intern and identifying strategies to prepare for residency before your match day, recognizing early signs of burnout, developing protective habits, learning practical lessons that make intern more manageable. And at the end of the session, we'll have an opportunity to dialogue and you can ask me anything. If there are any questions in the chat, Alex, I might need your help. Just pause me and we can get to them throughout the conversation. So the
No
reality
problem.
check, the transition that no one warns you about. So first thing I need you to do is understand that you gain value when you embrace your journey. And your journey as an IMG becomes your story. For some of us, this began with pre-med. We all remember the stressful days leading up to the MCAT, sending out tons of applications to medical schools in the US, in the Caribbean, and the anxiety of not knowing whether or not we would get accepted. But it did not stop there, and in many ways, it's still ongoing. And now that you've made it to medical school, pretty much halfway done, most of you, you face the apprehension of matching into your dream residency program, and every step of the journey becomes a part of your story because no two students have the exact same story. Some of you might have taken a different path, changed careers, taken time off, repeated an exam, will be matching later than expected, or probably just had moments when you genuinely questioned whether this was going to work out. And that's exactly what makes your journey yours. Embrace it, write it down, because you'll find it extremely helpful when you start writing your personal statement, especially your MS4s, those of you going into match year this cycle. So your story gives people a reason to remember you and create a connection during an interview. Programs, recruiters alike, they're trying to understand who you are as a person, what shaped you, what will you bring to their team. And your journey gives you experiences that can make those answers personal and memorable. Your story can also help you find mentors, and the challenges that you face may connect you to physicians who have walked a similar path. Reaching out to someone who understands the IMG journey can open doors to mentorship, guidance, research, clinical opportunities, professional connections, and the list goes on. I have a very long list of students who have reached out to me, and when we start talking, I'm like, oh, we have X, Y, and Z in common. Or I think you'd be a perfect match for my colleague. They might be a great mentor for you. So write down every single part of your journey because it becomes important. The emotional roller coaster after years and years of trying to get into medical school, it can be very surprising how emotional it feels once you actually arrive, especially when you transition from basic sciences to your clinical years. There can be excitement, for some of us, pride, relief, fear, self-doubt. Some of us even grieve the life that we left behind, or we left our family, our dogs, our pets. Sometimes we feel all of these emotions at the same time. And you might go from feeling confident on one day to feeling like a beginner all over again. But remember, you've worked incredibly hard to earn your medical degree and to get to this point. And suddenly, at the end of your fourth year, you've matched, you're in a new hospital, new healthcare system, surrounded by new people, new expectations, new everything. And you find yourself asking, questions you thought you would never need to ask, but that doesn't mean that you're behind or you're lost. It just means that you're transitioning. So, how do we navigate uncertainty when the path does not go as planned? I tell everyone, first thing, recognize that not every gap is a setback. Some gaps are unintentional. Delays with exams, applications, rotations, finances, housing, even immigration, or simply not matching where you expected to. So here's part of my story. At the end of my second year at Ross was located in Dominica at the time. That's a little island in the middle of the Caribbean, close enough to Barbados, St. Lucia. And the Category 5 Hurricane Maria happened. So can you imagine having to evacuate the island, leaving my family behind in the middle of my dedicated studying period for step one? Then I had to delay taking my exam due to the emergency and being told that I would miss the start of clinical rotations. Great. So I have a gap. I had to wait till the next cycle. And just when I thought that I was mentally in a solid place for taking step two, when I made it to that point, one of my close family members passed away. So of course, things happen. I felt like, my journey wasn't progressing as planned. And of course, eventually I was able to confidently sit and pass all my USMLE exams despite all of the unintentional delays. But I learned a really big lesson, and that is, don't confuse having a different timeline with having a failed timeline. Your path may take longer, or it might look different than your peers, but that does not make your journey any less valid or your future any less promising. Some of you may have gaps that are actually strategic. Having time away from the traditional timeline, it can be used intentionally to strengthen your application, to gain US clinical experience for those of you who don't have it, to pursue research, prepare for exams, probably even pursue a master's degree or build your network to assess your next steps. So remember how I was thrown off my projected path due to a natural disaster and a family emergency? Well, at that point, I thought that was the worst of it, but there's more, of course. And after graduating from medical school during the COVID pandemic, I had successfully matched into residency the same year, but I had to forfeit my position due to significant immigration delays. Another unintentional gap, but this time I decided to flip it into something productive. So I was torn between calling it quits on medicine, going back to banking and finance, which was my career for like 6 years before going to med school. I know, extreme opposites. But after thinking about it, I realized that my calling was truly medicine. And I knew that I had to be trying to match again the following season. And that's why it's important to have plan A, B, C, and even D. And I had to use that time away from residency to focus on what I could control, which was making myself a more competitive candidate for following match cycle. So I took step three. I became the founder of a platform built to support women's health and advocacy. I worked as a medical scribe, and eventually I worked as clinical faculty. And the point is, you may not be able to control when a rotation becomes available or when you match or how quickly an immigration process moves, but you can control how you use that time and how you prepare for the next opportunity. So plan for the things that you can anticipate. Don't wait until the last minute. Research your programs early. Understand your eligibility requirements. Keep all of your documents organized. Build relationships with faculty and the physicians. That proved to be super helpful when I was looking for a job during my gap year. Have backup options. So What will you do if you miss that internal medicine sub-I? Or what's your backup plan if you don't get that family medicine sub-I? Have a note of all your track application deadlines and responses. And you'll realize that things are more manageable and you're able to handle a lot more stress when you are organized. Imposter syndrome. How many of us have experienced this? Feel free to use the chat. Alex can keep me posted on the numbers. Have any one of you experienced imposter syndrome? I feel like during medical school and even residency, it hit me almost every week. Like there was always this one day of the week that I felt like I wasn't good enough, or, maybe I had to do way more. Everyone seemed to know a lot more than I do. Or was I the right person for the job? What if they realized I didn't belong here? Or, I trained at an international medical school. Am I prepared enough? Why does everyone else seem so confident? And the most difficult part of transitioning to residency can actually be feeling like you don't belong, even after everything you've accomplished to get there. And you might find yourself thinking all of these thoughts, saying, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this was a mistake. Why do I have to work twice as hard to be like my peers? These thoughts need to be pushed to the back of the brain, actually out of your brain, because you made it to that point, which means you deserved it. You're not only learning medicine, you're learning a new health system, a whole new culture for some of us who are not from the US, a whole new workflow, sometimes even a new way of communicating with patients and colleagues. So what do you do when imposter syndrome stands up? You have to name it. Recognize that this is imposter syndrome. I don't need to feel like this. Yes, the thoughts may come, but I know that I deserve to be here. Ask questions. Be willing to say that, I don't know, I'm going to look it up. It's not a weakness. This is actually a strength if you recognize the things that you don't know and you ask for help. Seek feedback. Let your trusted mentors and your colleagues help you to distinguish between what you actually need to improve and what is simply self-doubt. Keep evidence of your progress. Remember all the patients you helped, even as a medical student, all the skills that you've gained from medical school, all the way to residency where you'll gain so much more experience. Harness the positive feedback that you receive from your peers, from your residents who are part of your team, from your attendings, from your preceptors, even the nurses. And always remember the challenges that you overcame, because it's not easy being an IMG, making it to clinical rotations, matching, and then finally getting to your dream residency program. It's quite an accomplishment. Most importantly, give yourself some grace. And remember, being unfamiliar is not being the same as being unqualified. Whenever someone asks me, and I would be on the recruitment committees for different positions at my last residency program. I was also on the recruitment committee. And they'd be like, this is a Ross student. What do you think about the Ross University medical students? And I would say they're great. 10 out of 10, hands down. We have what it takes to be in the room. So give yourself some grace and know that you're qualified. There are some practical lessons that I wish I knew before intern year. And I'm going to share a few of those with you. First thing, you do not need to know everything on day one. Ask the residents who just started, honestly. They might be shaking in their boots, frantic, thinking that they need to know everything from A to Z. You don't need to know everything. You are not expected to walk into residency knowing how to manage every single patient, how to completely navigate every EMR, or understand every workflow. Intern year is a learning year. Same thing like your third and fourth year of medical school. You've changed from cramming everything in basic sciences to now applying everything you've learned to clinical medicine. And there will be things that you know, things that you don't know, and things that you don't even know that you don't know yet. And your job is not to know everything. Your job is to recognize what you know and what you don't. Ask questions when you are unsure. Look things up, listen to feedback, learn from each patient every single day. And in doing all of these things, you'll become a little more independent over time. Know how to ask for help effectively. There's a difference between saying, I don't know what to do, and throwing your hands up in the air, and saying, this is what I think is happening. This is what I've done so far, and this is where I'm unsure. Can you help me decide what to do next? As a senior resident, as a chief resident, as an attending, we're more inclined to sit down and help you figure things out if you use the second approach. So master the skill of knowing how to ask for help. When you ask for help, try to communicate. What is happening? What have you already done? What are you most concerned about? What do you think the next step should be? And specifically, what do you need help with? And that shows that you're thinking critically rather than simply handing the problem to someone else. That makes you a very strong candidate. Also, mastering closed loop communication. Medicine is a team sport, believe it or not. And communication errors can have real consequences because we're dealing with real people here. When someone gives you an important task, especially during a busy or a high pressure situation, confirm that you heard it. Understand what needs to happen. For example, your senior tells you, or your MS4 colleague tells you, can you repeat the patient's potassium after replacement? You need to acknowledge, yes, I'll give the replacement and repeat the potassium at 6 p.m. and I'll let you know the result. And then most importantly, you need to follow through and communicate the result. I find it super, super helpful. And I'm even impressed by the students who are able to master closed loop communication. I ask them to do one task, they acknowledge it, they get it done, and then they let me know what was done, what the results are. Closed loop communication simply means receiving the information, confirming it, completing the task, and communicating the result. The last thing is learning how to function when tired. And I know most of you would love to know how to do that. Honestly, it's a skill. It takes a lot of strong will and power. You have to will yourself to do this. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we hit the wellness slide. One more thing I want you to do, that's one thing I wish I knew before starting residency, is that being reliable weighs more than being perfect. You will make mistakes. You will forget something. Even as an attending, I'm not going to remember everything. You'll have days when you feel slow, overwhelmed, or behind. And what your team needs to know is if I give this person something to do, they will either get it done or tell me early if there's a problem. Being reliable means following through on tasks, communicating when something is delayed, asking for help before you are overwhelmed, owning up your mistakes, updating your team, showing up prepared, and most of all, doing what you said you would do. We don't expect you to be the smartest person in the room, but you need to be a person that we can trust. Depending on your specialty, a typical day as a resident requires anywhere from 8 to 24 hours a day of patient care. I know the students that I worked with in OBGYN, they would do 8-hour calls, or sometimes do calls from 3 to 11 p.m., from 11 to 7 a.m. And these are long hours for medical students. Sometimes the residents will be doing a 24-hour shift. And that time just includes patient care, like your calls, admissions, procedures, clinic, medical documentation. That's a lot of time. We haven't even accounted for studying, commuting, your family, relationships, and everything else that happens outside of the hospital. You can't approach medical school the same way as you approach residency. You're not going to have unlimited time and energy. And being tired will change how you think and how you act. Trust me. When you're exhausted, you're more likely to forget things, get angry, communicate poorly, become emotionally reactive, or even make mistakes. So it's very crucial to adopt wellness strategies, which we're going to go through. Alex, do we have any questions in the chat so far? I think I have a few more slides and then we're going to open it up for a conversation.
No questions so far.
All right. So let's talk about preparing for intern year. And these are the skills that I would like each of you to master. The hidden curriculum of clinical rotations. And yes, your preceptors, your senior residents, they would like to see how much knowledge you've got. But more importantly, they are scrutinizing your ability to communicate well, to be professional, the way you work with the team, how you deal with conflict, and how you handle mistakes. So whilst you may know every single branch of the internal iliac artery, are you able to handle all the admissions in a timely fashion? Are you able to work well with the medical students and the nurses? Are you able to, admit when you've made a mistake and know how to correct it? These are the things that we look for. And mastering these clinical and administrative skills will definitely give you the upper hand during your remaining rotations and residency. So the clinical skills I'd like you to master, and you can write this down, or I can share the slides with Alex at the end of the talk, how to give a very good oral presentation. And that varies by specialty. The internal medicine hospitalists, they do their presentations slightly different from the OBGYNs. I think for every single rotation, you need to master how to give an oral presentation, how to write your notes effectively, how to read and understand labs, basic procedures if you intend on going into a surgical specialty like general surgery, OBGYN, know how to tie your surgical knots, suture, do pelvic exams, etc. And for your administrative skills, time management is number one. Knowing how to prioritize your tasks. You have one patient with very abnormal vitals versus a nurse asking for an order for LR. Which are you going to do first? Are you going to go sit at the computer, log in, wait for Epic to load, finally put in the order for the LR versus checking on the patient who has abnormal vitals, possibly crashing? And most of all, being professional in everything that you do. Always remember someone's watching, whether you're within the walls of the hospital or the clinic. Also, your social media, if it's open to, if it's public that, your attendings and your colleagues and your nurses could see, you have to be professional. This field of medicine is a different ballgame. So these are the things that you need to master before heading to intern year. Wellness strategies. So the meat of the talk, how to survive without sacrificing yourself. It's a lot. Residency, medical school, I would not do it again. No. We walk this road once and we master it. First thing, avoid burnout. Learn how to prioritize your tasks rather than trying to do everything at once. Identify what's urgent, important, and what can wait. Again, know when to ask for help. You hear me saying this 1,000 times, and that means it's important. Use checklists for recurring responsibilities and keep track of tasks so you don't rely entirely on your memory, because some days are so hectic that you may forget something that's actually very important. Stress reduction practices. Incorporate mindfulness meditation for just 10 minutes a day. And this has been shown to reduce stress levels significantly in medical professionals. So whether it's using an app for meditation, whether you're going to do your meditation on your own, self-directed, with a group, with a therapist, mindfulness meditation is extremely helpful. Also engage in physical exercise, make it regular. That helps to promote your mental health and resilience. Get enough sleep, because 2 hours a night is not going to cut it. You are going to run on fumes, especially if you're in a really demanding specialty like surgery or OBGYN. You have to get rest. Eat, hydrate, even when the day's busy. I'm guilty. I am working on it. I literally have to walk with my Stanley cup or some bottle that holds 2 liters, or close to 2 liters, because I'll forget to drink water because it's so busy. but eating and staying hydrated is very important. One thing I have had to reel myself in to get back to is maintaining a hobby. Before medical school, I had so many hobbies that kind of fell along the way, as I got busier. I loved to read. I would read a book a day. I would set reading goals every year to read like, 100 books or whatnot. And that's reading for pleasure. That's not a textbook or a journal or a magazine. That's reading for pleasure. I loved sports. I loved volleyball. I still do, netball. I was into track and field. I would watch sports all the time. I loved doing crafts. I loved paintings. And as I made my way through medical school and residency, I found that I stopped doing all of these things. And that's something that you have to will yourself to do. So maintain at least one hobby. If it's something arts and crafty, something physical, you like running, you like marathons, you like football, soccer, basketball, whatever it is, try to maintain a hobby. It's going to help you relieve a lot of stress and also help your mind to stay on track when the going gets tough. And the last thing is to find a support system. And it might look different for everyone. Some of you might be religious, some of you are not. If you are finding a church or a support group that's in your community that aligns with your values, your family, having friends, a circle of maybe professionals who do social activities outside of work. It's so helpful to have a support system, people who are going to understand your journey, understand that, you may not have 10 hours a day to give, but you are willing to sacrifice some time to focus on a common goal. Find a support system is very important. Even if it's calling your mom for 15 minutes an evening, do it. It's gonna help your mental. And the importance of a work-life balance, I can't stress that enough. The goal is to build a life that is sustainable. Residency can easily become your entire identity if you let it. But if you're still a person outside of the hospital, there is light at the end of the tunnel. In your first 90 days as an intern, it's going to be tough. Remember this movie, The Intern, starring Anne Hathaway as Jules and Robert De Niro as Ben? Be like Ben. Intern year can be very, very humbling. In fact, your entire career might be humbling. There will be days when you leave the hospital thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing. And there will be other days when you realize, wait, I actually handled that. Both are part of becoming a physician. And the last thing is to have that intern year mindset. And this is my intern year prayer for you when you get to that point, and you will. What matters most is that you keep showing up, that you'll be teachable, that you'll communicate effectively, that you take ownership of your learning, be kind, and give yourself some grace. So as you prepare for residency and beyond, I hope that you remember that you're not starting from scratch. You're bringing with you every exam that you've studied for, every rejection you overcame, every late night, every sacrifice, every person who believed in you, and every moment when you weren't sure you'd make it, but you kept going anyway. And there'll be days when you feel confident, and there'll be days when you question yourself. Your timeline, your challenges, and even all the detours along the way have shaped the physician that you are becoming. Your story is completely different from your peers. Don't be afraid to own that story. You made it here. You belong here. Now go write the next chapter. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Ask me anything at all. Doesn't have to be part of the lecture. See who's here. I am finally accessing the chat. We have Quinetta. I hope I'm saying it right. M3 in Michigan. Awesome. You're almost there. Trust Oliver, M4. Perfect. Jennifer, 4th year. That's amazing. M3, M4, it's like very close to the end of the tunnel. And, these are your you should really be enjoying your rotations, M3, M4, and using this time to focus on your routine. What is going to be your routine once you hit residency, building your wellness strategy, making sure you master all the skills before hitting intern year. That's the perfect time. And taking a break, doing all of your hobbies, and making sure you spend a lot of time with friends and family. Yeah. So congratulations in advance to all of you. I have a few minutes. Feel free to unmute your mic if you just want to chat. You're welcome.
I see that some people are typing, and if there are questions, I can verbalize them for the recording.
Okay, sounds good.
So Jennifer wants to know, what was your typical intern year like? Were you able to get enough sleep? How do you prioritize what's important? Like if clinicals last 14 hours, how do you prioritize your other hours that includes preparing slash pre-charting for the next day?
That's a great question. My intern year, I literally hit the ground running. I started on labor and delivery, they break it up into different blocks like gynae, clinic, different specialties. I started on L&D, and that must have been the busiest block. I had really good seniors. That's the only reason I didn't feel lost. So it was tough. I did a minimum of 12 hours a day for like 6 days, 5 to 6 days a week for 4 weeks in a block. And it was really hard sticking to the routine that I had planned out in my head. One thing that helped with just getting by every day was meal prepping at the beginning of the week or whenever I had an off day, getting some form of physical activity in, going for a short walk or going to the gym for half an hour. That definitely helped. I really relied on my friends and family during that time. That helped keep me sane and helped me to, kind of roll with the punches. And in terms of sleep, I had a strict bedtime. So I would get all of my charting done at work so that I don't chart at home. And I would get home, shower, eat, and try to be in bed by 10 p.m. because I would be up again at 5, to get to work. So I had a strict bedtime, and my family knew, don't call me after 10 p.m. I'm sleeping. So I was able to get enough sleep, and I had a journal, I had a planner. I still have a planner. I have one right here. And I would plan all of my appointments, all of the self-care things that I had to do. If you asked me to do something, it had to be on the planner. Otherwise, I wasn't going. So just being organized helped me to get through. And in terms of pre-charting, it depends on your rotation. So for labor and delivery, patients come in, they deliver, they go, you know, I would just quickly pre-chart the morning of and then go to sign out. And after you get the hang of it, after a few weeks, pre-charting becomes really easy, especially if you document well and you're able to look at your colleagues' notes. So I hope that answers your questions. That's what I did for my intern year. You're welcome. You have to find your rhythm. It's different for everyone, but finding your rhythm will help. And it might take a few days, a few weeks, but once you find it, it will be helpful. I see a couple more people typing. We'll give them a chance.
So Jennifer wants to know, how do you get a mental break slash physical break with 6 days a week continuously of work for those going into IM?
Yeah, it's difficult. Remember, at least for IM, as far as I know, and as far as my IM colleagues dealt with it at the hospital that I was working, they work as teams. And that's the best part about IM. They have an admitting team, they have another team, and they have a couple of residents per team that you're not doing it all yourself throughout the day. So they would take turns, doing the administrative tasks. They would, get their rounding out of the way, take turns to eat, grab a break. And that's really helpful. So you're not going for 12 hours a day or 14 hours. And they do have off days where they get to relax. And remember, they have didactic protected time as well. That might be a half day or whatever it is for your specialty. It really helps to change the pace as you try to get through your week. It can seem overwhelming for, a student jumping into residency. After a while, you do get used to it. So it's very you feel validated being worried. That's understandable, but you have a team and you have other interns going through the same thing as you, so you'll be fine. Trust me.
Great. And Quinetta wants to know, did you have time to visit family and friends during your training? If not, how did you maintain a healthy work-life balance and stay connected with the people important to you?
That's I really like this question. I got married during my intern year. I don't know how I did it, but yeah, I got engaged and I got married, and it was a destination wedding using my vacation during my intern year. So yes, you have vacation. I think most programs do 4 weeks. They might have different policies on, how many days or weeks you could take at a time, but you will have your paid time off. Use it, use every single hour of it. Go visit your family, travel. I traveled during the breaks that I had, if not out of the US, within the US, staycation somewhere. We did it all. Because you really need that break away from the hospital to reset and get your mind on focus again. I spent a lot of time on the phone with my family. Sometimes my mom would call me in the middle of a shift. I'll be like, Mom, I'm in the middle of a shift, so go ahead, send me a text and I'll catch you later. But my family, they tried their best to be involved, and I spent a lot of time on the phone with them when I had that time. The off days that I had, your golden weekend, when you get those, I spent that outside. I had to go get some fresh air, go to a festival, music, arts, go to the gym, meet up with your colleagues outside of work. You'll find that your co-interns, your co-residents are really fun and cool people outside of residency. So I spent a lot of time just connecting with them outside of the hospital, and it made a world of difference. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Quinetta. Oh yeah, we've had quite a few, babies and weddings and christenings. We've had all sorts of things during residency. Residency is not, it does not define your entire life. it's a lot of hours that you commit to the hospital and to your patients, but you do have a life outside of residency, and that's the beautiful thing, being able to just balance it all and be, that Superman, that Superwoman, um, going to the hospital, spending X amount of hours, coming home to meet your kids and your dog or your cat, your spouse, going for a walk or going for dinner one night. It helps to, be spontaneous sometimes when you have that off time. And some days you just want to stay home and sleep, and that's okay. After a 24-hour call, you could not get me. I wanted to be up and about and moving, but I would sleep all day. And your family, the ones close to you, they will understand and they'll bring you dinner to the house, or they'll, watch a movie with you. They'll try to make your off days fun. And I think that's really nice. And talking about work-life balance, I had co-residents who would run marathons or go to the gym. One of my co-residents has a whole fitness page. He's in the gym every day, doesn't matter what time he gets off. And one of my other co-residents, she would run all of the marathons, train for the marathons, run the marathons. And, it helps to keep her physically in shape and keep her stress levels low. So, yep, find a hobby and just stick to it. So we have one more question.
Yeah, Jennifer wants to know, did you hear about residents working after intern year, and how does that work?
Do you mean moonlighting? I just wanted to clarify. Okay, moonlighting. Some people do it. Most of my colleagues did not because, again, I was in OB, so it was very, very demanding. There was no way to work extra hours being on OB. I'm sorry. So maybe other specialties, I don't know if anyone specifically who did it, but it's an option for you. But you have to read your contract, pay attention to your contract. Basically, you moonlight on your off days. Gotta be careful with that. Just make sure you have enough rest in between your duty hours. You're welcome.
Any other questions? If not, then this was a very productive session. Thank you to Dr. Luke for taking the time to be here tonight to talk to students and give back to the current RUSM community. It's been great to have you and providing your insights. Thank you all of you for attending today's Rounds of the Council session, and we hope you all have a good night. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me. You're welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.